friends, it's Jeff. Many of you know we've been working on big things at aroundthecircle.org. First, we had 10 new members in August, and as we promised, we donated their August dollars to the Weld County Food Bank. This will provide 600 meals for food insecure people in our town in the memory of Robin Williams, and we're very grateful for them. Second, we're going to create a new monthly tier at Around the Circle. This is the $125 tier for those of you who are really serious. This is going to include everything that the normal $20 membership includes. Weekly videos, extended interviews, question and answer with us, our audiobook, but we're adding 1 hour per month of mistyping with me or 90 minutes of me leading your book group of 5 or more readers. Most of you have heard our mistyping conversations. If you've been interested in doing mistyping with me, or you have someone you care about who wants to sit down, sign up. We'll send you a link. Or if you are leading a study through our book, Around the Circle, sign up. I'll meet with you online once a month until we're done, or until the next book comes out, or until, I suppose, you feel like you got what you needed. Thirdly, we're going to add 2 big additions to our $20 membership. Coming November 1st, we will be hosting a monthly Saturday morning workshop for all members, including free members in 2025. This is going to be hosted by myself, by Katie Whitlock, and we're going to be talking about numbers in excess, which is a vital topic, and I hear 0 people talking about it. We already have 25 people signed up, so go there for this. Second, Katie and I are going to begin posting a regular video cast on Sundays called Rewired, in which we're going to tackle topics in Enneagram world that are seldom discussed but need some heavy attention, and we'll start with a half dozen in-depth episodes on the Enneagram and gender. And third, we're going to begin sending our invitations to be on our stress and security panels in 2026. We want people who want to talk to us about their type. These will be recorded. These will be in-depth discussions and available only to members. So if you are interested in our best content, want to be involved in our conversations, go sign up. Presently, we have nearly 500 listeners who have a free membership at Around the Circle, and with those free memberships, they get access to unreleased interviews, access to early book chapters, and for the next 2 months, they're going to have invitations to all of our online workshops and panels. So go sign up, take a look at what we're doing. We would be thrilled to connect with you there, and huge thanks to all of you who have chosen to support us already for more than 5 years. You guys are the best, and I'm incredibly grateful. Hey friends, it's Jeff. I'm with my good friend Ben. Ben is a professional counselor, family counselor. How would you describe your counseling?
Individual and families, yes.
I could count on one hand the number of people who have come into my life that I have like, dear God, please bring somebody into my life of this sort. And Ben is at the top of the list. True hero in my life and life of our family. I'm thrilled that I get to talk to him about Enneagram today. He has taken a test way back in the day, never got into the Enneagram, but was curious about it. And I said, hey, do you want to do a mistyping conversation with me? And here we are.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
So thrilled to talk to you. So the way this normally happens is, as you know, is I'm just going to start peppering you with questions, and we'll just see where this goes. Now you, just for the sake of listeners, you actually read like half of the book, yeah?
I have.
Come on. So you got a little bit of insights into where we might be going.
Yes.
Well, you are not a Colorado native, correct?
Correct. I'm originally from the Los Angeles area of California.
Dodgers fan?
Huge Dodger fan.
Was there a football team when you were growing up?
Yeah, Raiders and Rams, but I don't like either one of those.
That's good. That's good for your soul. And you moved out here when?
2001. I came out in 2001.
To Greeley for school, yeah?
Fort Collins, actually, for undergrad, and then was there for 2 or 3 years, then I moved here for graduate school.
And ended up staying.
Like it so much, I'm going to stay. That's right.
So, counseling. What got you into counseling at first?
That's a really deep question on some level. Can I answer that and take a couple minutes?
Yeah, of course.
So there was a time in my life where I was deciding what I was going to be and who I was going to be. Several things that interest me. I was into genetics, and so I had studied a lot in that. in college, wanted to be a part of the Human Genome Project. And then in my second year of college, they solved it according to it, and I had to rethink what I was going to do. I also was trained to be a paramedic and had gone through all the classes and done everything to be a paramedic except take the test, and I decided on the day of the test I wasn't going to be a paramedic. And so I found my way into counseling. I like things that are more of a challenge, things that are black and white, like math or writing in some ways. I find a little bit easier, so psychology I found to be a really big challenge. And in doing so, I kind of found a science that interested me and kept me rooted in trying to be better at what I was becoming. And psychology was one of those things that I felt could continually challenge me.
Talk about why you stepped out of the paramedic thing at the last minute.
Well, big reason why was because I heard that because I knew that there was like a 5-year wait list for paramedics in L.A. County.
Okay.
So even if I
jobs?
got 4 jobs, it was a wait list to even be considered. So I knew that if I got my paramedic license or certificate, it would be at least 5 years before I could find a job with the county, which would be the kind of job I would want to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bang.
So I didn't want to wait. I can be rather impatient.
Talked about being rooted, but you connected it with becoming better. Do you have a bug for quote unquote becoming better?
Yeah. Full disclosure, growing up in California and Los Angeles, I knew a lot of people involved in gangs and, I don't know, questionable behaviors. And I, like many others in that area, I had to consider whether or not that was going to be something that I was going to pursue or not either.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of my life, for a big portion of my adolescence, that was what I did. But I knew that I had to be something more than that.
So you were finding community in those spaces?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're on the street or when you hang out with kids on the street, a lot of the time that becomes your second family or a sense of community. Absolutely.
And were you poor growing up?
We were pretty, well, I would say low middle class. Okay. Both my parents are teachers. And so they didn't make a lot of money. Both worked long hours. I was a latchkey kid in that way. My parents were always good and available. My mom would go to our sports games. My dad would coach sometimes and be at our sports games. My mom never missed a school performance or things like this. But we really didn't have a whole lot of money. I know my parents worked really hard to give us those extracurriculars. I think part of that was so that I spent less time hanging out with the knuckleheads of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. When you think about like some of your dreams and some of the things that you want most, what comes to mind?
Now, when you say dreams, you mean like my life aspirations or my life dreams?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Future thinking.
Well, I feel this is kind of complicated too. So, over the course of my lifetime, I feel like I've been able to have a perspective of what it's like to have money and what it's like to have no money. Because of that, money holds a really low priority in my life. It is necessary to pay the bills. It is necessary to live in some sense in comfort, but it is not a means to happiness. It is not a means to an end of any kind of work or struggle. Money allows you to be comfortable, but it doesn't really change anything other than that. So my life goal is not to be rich. It is not to have money. As simplistic and as cliche as it is, my life goal is to be happy. My life goal is to make this world a better place than it was when I left, and not to just say that, but to have people who can attest to that when I am gone. Mm. That and also being the son, the friend. I'm an uncle. I don't have any kids of my own, so being an uncle, being a partner, and being the best of those that I can be are kind of the life aspirations that I have. Mm-hmm. I'm a therapist, so I strive to be the best therapist that I can be. These are the kind of aspirations I have, and it's more around the results of these things as opposed to, the money or any kind of authority or things that might be given because of that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. You seem, from an outsider perspective, you seem like an incredibly gifted therapist. When you think of yourself as a therapist, what, positive-wise, what do you think your biggest strengths are as a therapist?
That's an interesting question. I think it takes, in order to be a good therapist, you cannot have lived a white picket fence life. I think counselors who do not have the experience in which they try to help their clients with are less effective therapists. So unfortunately, maybe to my credit, I have made a lot of bad decisions in my life. I've done a lot of things that I'm not proud of. But I think that has given me a perspective of both resilience, of recognizing that we are not defined by the actions we have done in the past, or by the factors of our life like poverty or race or things like that. So I think to answer your question simply is that I think I have made enough bad decisions in my life that allows me to be non-judgmental, to be supportive, and to have a really good grasp on finding solutions to problems that probably affect most of us. One of the things I kind of pride myself on is that I would never ask my client to do anything that I myself wasn't willing to do.
What do you find most gratifying in the work that you do?
These small gestures of humanness and appreciation. So if I can I kind of explain with the story?
Yeah, please.
So for part of my career, I've worked in corrections, and I spent 13 years in corrections doing mental health there. Some of the most rewarding memories I have of the time were people who would come into the jail. I would work with them, and then they would leave, and I would find them again, or I would see them again out in the community. I had a few that would come back and just visit me, tell me how their life's going, tell me what they're doing, tell me how well they're doing, or the positive things that they have in life, like they're going to college, or some of them have kids or have started families of their own. When they remember how I helped them, and when they remember and appreciate that effort and how they feel that changed the trajectory of their life, that is exactly why I've chosen to be a counselor.
That's lovely. On that front, do you find that you are the sort of person that gives a lot with a expectation that others are going to give back to you? Do you find that motivating your gift giving?
I wouldn't say that is a motivation, but it is an affirmation in this way. I would be lying if I told you that that's not something I would look forward to or like or even appreciate. But it is not something I expect. When I help folks, there isn't strings attached in this way to where that would be the expectation, but that would always be a positive thing. In some silly way, I think of myself as training all my clients to be junior therapists, so that at some point they don't need me anymore. That would be the point. So I don't think I have that expectation, but it is something that is valued and welcomed.
When you're not at your best, can you become overly judgmental?
Yeah, I could say that. I wouldn't say overly judgmental. I'd be more critical. I think I can be more critical when I'm not at my best, yeah.
What's that look like?
Easily frustrated, more impatient, rigid boundaries.
When you're really secure and feeling good, does that go away?
Yeah. I think of myself as a pretty laid back, chilled person. Don't think of myself as too tightly wound, although at my worst I'm probably seen as tightly wound.
Will other people tell you that?
Yeah. I've been told that I have a pretty intense personality. at times.
What do you get most intense about?
On some serious level, I think injustice.
Mm-hmm.
Injustice is a strong trigger for me. So on some level, it would be, I have a big thing against bullies. I dislike bullies, and I am one to stand up regardless of the situation and speak my mind in regards to, someone who's a bully. Anytime, I guess, things would trigger me when I feel they would just be a blatant or obscene disrespect for no reason. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
A sense of injustice, yeah. That would be the things that would probably get me most triggered in that way.
When you, this is a strange question, but when you walk into a meeting with a bunch of other people, are you very aware of where you're going to sit?
Yes.
And what goes through your mind?
I usually assess a room before I go into it.
Uh-huh.
I think in some ways, either consciously, a lot of the time consciously, but even on a subconscious level, I am aware of where the exits are. I have a general idea of where I am in relation to exits, escape routes, something like this. I think some of that, to be honest with you, is because of the training I had with the jail. Mm-hmm. Over years, that stuff just is pounded into you in this way.
Sure. To
make sure safety and, some of this kind of stuff that's kind of become my default. But I think in many ways that was really natural for me to do that to begin with. So I think that's a big part of just who I am.
Yeah. In spaces where there's a handful of people, are you aware of the power dynamics at play between people?
I don't. How would I describe this? I'm less aware of the personal power dynamics and more aware of the social power dynamics. Cliques, groups, subsections, something like that. I think I would be more tuned into that than, say, being able to identify an alpha in the room or something like this.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Feels more analytical, or...
And I would probably do more of my analytics in them in relation to others, not in them in relation to themselves. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Do you find that you, like when problem solving, do you find that you become more willing to solve the problem? Or when problem solving, do you get more emotional? When problem solving, do you get more spin things positive? Anything kind of?
When it comes to conflict, I think I am very much solution and resolution oriented. Mm-hmm. Very much so. I am a lot less interested or focused on the blame or how we got there so much as I'm more interested in how we're moving forward.
Do you find that you compare yourself with other people very often?
I used to. I do that a lot less now.
Yeah. So, like, what's a place that might be a point of comparison?
Well, I'm sure some of your listeners might be able to pick up on this, but I have a stutter. And so being able to talk fluently has always been a source of personal judgment on my part. Mm-hmm. Short story, real short story. Medical knowledge has changed over the years. I was born in 1980, so it was a long time ago. I developed my stutter when I was, young, 5, 6 maybe. My parents took me to the doctor to kind of see what was wrong because they didn't know. And I remember the doctor telling them that I was mentally handicapped, and that was why I had stuttered. Uh-huh. And it was this idea, like, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Gazar, there's nothing we can do. Ben's going to be this way. Like, you're just going to have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. They wanted to give me meds and all this other stuff, but it was more or less like there's nothing they can do about it. Now, I have a cousin who has Down syndrome, and I understand what mentally handicapped is, and I know that I wasn't that. Mm-hmm. But I was 5, and I was sitting outside the doctor's door listening to him because I'm a nosy kid. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how can this be? I'm not like my cousin who I know has this. And so I think maybe on some level from a young age, I always had this insecurity around either maybe needing to prove my intelligence or demonstrate that because people much smarter than me and older than me told me that I was incapable of doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you struggle at all with anxiety?
Situational. Generally speaking, I'd say no, but situational, yes.
It's a good distinction.
A few situations, or if you want a few situations that might cause me anxiety, I do get a little claustrophobic in tight spaces. New relationships, especially romantic ones, cause me a little bit of anxiety in that way. First date anxiety would be kind of the anxiety I would describe it as. And anytime I really have to public speak because of my stutter, there's a noticeable difference. Yeah.
You've kind of come to it a couple times, but you've brought up a tendency to be self-critical. Do you consider yourself a self-critical person?
No. And this is my distinction. I consider myself a highly self-accountable person, not critical. The critical comes when I'm not following through on what I'm holding myself accountable to do.
Love that. That's a great distinction.
I think that's more of where that comes from, yeah. But I accountability is important to me, and that generally comes, my criticalness comes when I feel like I'm dropping the ball.
Can you think of a time when you've dropped the ball?
Yeah. I mean, I can give you a kind of different examples. So, for instance, one of the things, as a therapist, I pride myself on trying to be a good communicator or being able to see different points of view. We all get into conflicts with our loved ones, our family, or our siblings or relatives in this kind of way. And I think an example is like, no matter what the problem is, you always have your perspective. And that perspective is right, but it's not the truth. What'll generally happen is that if I get critical around that kind of thing, I will kind of recognize that is my viewpoint. And part of my challenge is to broaden my horizon to see their viewpoint, and if I can still feel the same way after feeling the empathy of their viewpoint. If I can, then that generally tells me I have a good reason to stand on my soapbox. If I don't, then I get over myself and we work towards a resolution. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I look at that. But a lot of things, I mean, countless times a day, I kind of been left with this decision of whether to hold on to my viewpoint or whether to allow myself to view other viewpoints. And I always try to do that. And in doing so, it usually manages the anger or the frustration and tolerance or whatever that is.
I get the sense that from what I've heard, I don't know if you can say Ben works with my child. Is that do I have the right to say that, or
you have it more than I do?
Yeah, right.
You have it more than I do.
I hear encouragements of that they're very physical for the most part. It's not. I see a lot more. Are you doing these sorts of things? Then are you feeling these sorts of things? Would that be correct in saying that would be more the priority? I don't know if that's just how the profession works, but
no, I think it's probably more how I work, and this is kind of why the method behind this madness. I'm a firm believer that what we think directly feeds into how we feel. How we feel has a direct impact on how we behave. How we behave is generally the material that we tend to think about. That is the feedback loop. So on some level, with anything without action breaks that cycle down, and we are not working towards change. However, when we can put all these pieces together and we can talk about thoughts and we can talk about feelings and then manifest these through changed behaviors, then we're able to create this dynamic to where something is able to change. But I don't feel that, while each piece is important in its own right, the change is the most important piece, because without that, nothing will really be different.
And the change needs to be embodied.
Correct. Manifested in this way, yes. Yes.
It's perfect. And it's not just that that's where you go theoretically, though it is. I assume that really connects with you. Like, you're like, this is what I think ought to happen. They ought to get into there by you.
If I can be honest, Jeff, I am the type of person that if there was a way to do this through analytics, through some other way, I would have found this. I would have found it, and I would have done this. This would have been my life. The easy approach is not an approach that works, generally speaking. And one of the things I think about, that most things in life that are worthwhile take effort. And so it's this idea that if you take the easy approach in life, you are going to get a duller version of what could have been.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Bang. All right. Well, you're one of the few that's read the book, which I'm really grateful for.
It's good, dude. It's good.
I appreciate it. So about this time, kind of transition to specific Enneagram talk. But as you go through as just a first-time reader, what stood out to you most?
One of the things that I really liked from the book was how you categorized. When we talk about the 9 numbers, 9 can feel a lot, overwhelming, or almost so many that it's hard to keep track of with any good clarity. I really like how you break them down into the 3 parts: the head, the mind, and the body. The similarities, yet the differences within each of these, but the theme which kind of ties them all together. I think as I read and I was able to kind of use 3 categories as opposed to 9, it made it more clear and added more value to what I was reading and understanding, because one of the things that I like is that I generally like to be inclusive. We're more alike than we are different. And so the 3 also felt like it was grouping us more together, where we're more alike as opposed to different. And I kind of like that too.
Solid. It already kind of goes with some of your approaches as a therapist. Yeah. Is it, you're going to have to remind me, is it cognitive behavioral theory that breaks things down into thinking, feeling, and action?
Correct. And that's generally what I identify with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bang. Language in the book, especially the first half, is going to be a lot on thinking and anxiety, feeling and comparison or shame, and being intuitive in anger. Did you see anything in those sorts of descriptions that kind of connected with you more?
Yes, but I almost have to qualify this.
Yeah.
When I almost see myself as 2 different people. Me as a kid or as an adolescent, say the California me, and then the after California me. Now, I was 21 when I moved up here, so I kind of, was maturing, developing, brain development was working, all that kind of stuff. And so I almost feel, because of how distinct that separation was, it feels like two different parts. The part of me that was younger was fueled by anger. Fueled by anger. Not just it was the predominant emotion. If you asked people when I was in adolescence, they would tell you I had an anger issue. Unless you want me to speak more about that, I'll kind of transition to how I see myself as an adult. As weird as it is now, Jeff, at this point in time in my life, I really don't feel motivated or driven by a negative emotion. It's not guilt or shame, because in some level, my hard line on accountability keeps me from feeling too much guilt, keeps me from feeling too much shame in this way. I have spent so much of my life being angry that I realize how destructive that is. And it is in some sense a daily choice that I make to choose to not be angry, or to choose, say, love, being patient, putting good into the world, something like this, as opposed to whatever that negative emotion is. But on some level, it's a daily struggle. But it's a conscious choice I feel I make every day that I intentionally choose.
Right. Yeah, so it's still there. You're not saying it's fueling you anymore.
No.
It is but it's daily worked on. What's an example of you working on your anger?
Okay. In California, I had bad road rage.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I would scream. I would go apeshit in my car. And if you've ever driven on the 10, you'd understand.
Right.
The 10 was the one where I felt it the most. And so, but yeah, I'm here. I'm getting irate. I'm flipping out. I'm being crazy. And for what? I'm not going any faster. I'm not getting there any sooner.
Yeah.
But that's an example of where, like, California, I'd be screaming, and now I just enjoy my drive.
Solid. Last question is just about your spaces. You have an office, and you're a homeowner.
Correct.
Do you find that you like things in a certain order, setup, or are you pretty free flowing with your spaces? I suppose they are your spaces for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. They are mine for the most part. I generally like some order or structure to my space. I'm a person of routine.
Mm-hmm.
So, people who know me at any given time of the day can have with a high efficiency rate of knowing what I'm doing and where I'm at in this way, because I do the same thing every day. I think my communal spaces at home need to be a certain way. Say cleaner, more welcoming, more inviting, less clutter. But I do allow myself my office and my house, and my office is my own bit of chaos. It's controlled chaos, but it is definitely chaos. And I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it works. I allow my chaos to be structured in a way that's like that it is only in my office.
All right. Well, I got thoughts. You said in our conversation a couple of days ago that you thought you actually identified with one of the numbers that was in the book, right?
I have an idea. Yeah.
Yeah. The things that I see most, and with the caveat that I type everybody as a 1, I have a very strong disposition towards that for some reason. But that's what I see in most of your language, is from longing to improve things, making things better in terms of both yourself and the folks that you work with. Being a black and white thinker is a huge one quality, though it can be some others. You don't seem to struggle with anxiety, and so some of the other types that might be more perfectionistic in that way, or not perfectionistic, but more black and white in that way, normally have a little bit of anxiety that goes with it. The amount that you seem to solve problems with your head and push towards idealistic kinds of solutions I see in a lot of your language. The way that you've done work on personal judgment seems very advanced. And being able to say it's not just self-criticism, I have a self-accountable side, means that, like, I feel like you have done work here to develop a vocabulary and posture. It not only strikes me as really healthy, it strikes me as the sort of thing that I would hear from somebody who's really mature. It also seems like you have a intentional open-handedness, but know exactly what it's like to not be open-handed. And that also feels very one-ish to me. So, and I don't know if labeling, if bringing out the numbers hits you yet, but that would be my first go. If I were going to say, what are some other numbers to consider, I would want to ask you a little bit more. 8 questions and maybe some 3 questions and 5 questions, but there was so much here that felt just one-ish. That's where I kind of landed. So is that what you saw in the book, or did you see something else?
I saw something else.
Tell me.
I felt that 8, the challenger,
good,
was hit a few heartstrings on more than one occasion.
So I didn't ask as many 8 questions as I wanted to, as I just said. See, one that I need to make sure that you know that I knew. I want you to know that I know that you know.
Solid.
But but that was the place that I would want to dive deeper as well. So especially in terms of it's important to name being fueled by anger, being able to see your anger, how anger materializes in your life. That came out in a lot of our later conversation here. So, and you had mentioned disliking bullies, having injustice as a trigger, big 8 kind of imagery there. I did get the sense that you, both 8s and 1s want agency, and it felt like the way that you described your early life, from bouncing from here, from genetics to paramedics to doing counseling, it felt like you were just very much, you were in control. And I asked a little bit about how you come into a room and feel power dynamics. That was kind of where I pivoted off of 8 a little bit, but
And it's kind of interesting as you talk about this a little bit. Can I kind of
yeah, and I would love your thoughts.
for your thought here a little bit? I don't need or struggle to have control, but I think I do a really, really good job of capitalizing on the factors that I can naturally to exude or take control of some regards. So, for instance, I'm not going to, like, on some level, I'm not going to be mad at someone who is really short-fused with me or talks to me disrespectfully in this way, so much as I'm going to change how I talk to have them either mirror or begin to change how they're talking to me to be able to work that out. So there's a really good chance that if someone's yelling at me, I'm not going to start yelling back at them. I'm going to change my tone, change my voice, and through that social dynamic, I'm going to control the conversation to a healthier way, as opposed to like, oh, quit yelling at me or yelling back or escalating or doing some of this. I'm going to kind of socially manipulate that conversation to calm down or go in a better way.
Yeah.
So I tend to do that, and I tend to do that almost naturally, not without much thought. Similarly, because of that, I think I do really well in crises. I can think pretty clearly. I can think pretty clear. I'm pretty decisive. Crises don't scare me.
By the way, I'll be thrilled if you're an 8. We have yet to find an 8 to do mistyping with, so you will be
Interesting.
So I'm pulling for you on the 8 side.
Interesting. So,
and that's thinking clearly and decisively is not commonly a strength for 1s.
I find it strange too. I mean, yeah, like I can think clearest in times when I shouldn't. In that way, yeah, it is weird, but it's me.
That's excellent. Well, on that front, I would love to jump into it again. The case as you're saying that doesn't push me off of 3 or 5 either. And it seems to me like I should have set up ahead of time that, in my view, actually finding Enneagram type can take a lot of work, and it's not one of those just very fast, here's a test and this will get you where you need to go. So a lot of the things you're saying are wonderful. We have, I don't know if you got to the back, but we have this fantastic mistyping chart in the back, in which we compare numbers. Did you see this? Oh, you did. Did you already kind of mess with this?
I've looked at it.
Ooh.
I've looked at it for myself, and the person who I'm dating told me her number, and I wanted to kind of.
Did you do 8s and 5s?
Yep, it's a good match.
And was it the case that you saw yourself in the 8 column and her in the 5 column?
Yeah, she told me she was a 5, and I thought I was an 8, and so I kind of just had to verify that there wasn't some what's it called, some algorithm that said, oh, this isn't going to be good.
Right, sure. No, of all things, I try and pitch it to folks like it works as mistyping, but if you want to see yourself and people that you love next to each other, it really works well to kind of outline, here's where you're probably most different. But for 1s and 8s, just to kind of play it out, open questions, where 1s often want to be good, 8s often want to be strong. Does one of those pull at you more?
Sorry, the reason why I'm pausing is I'm thinking about this, because as I think about it, things get complicated when we talk in this way, because good is a judgment value, and what some people would say is good, I would disagree with. Yet on some heart level, I feel like, that probably rings truer more than being strong. However, in my effort to be strong, I can enforce what I feel is right. So my good becomes my good. It doesn't have to be their good.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, I almost think on a core level, it is more important for me to be strong than it is for me to be good. Because if I'm strong, my own judgment, my own accountability allows me to kind of live by that standard, not by their standard, by my own standard.
Yeah.
To have that kind of control in that way.
That would be a follow-up. Are you more of a let's do things the right way or we need to do things my way sort of person?
I am the right way.
Yeah.
Do things the right way the first time. That is always
And that can be a worthwhile distinction. And dear listener, you should absolutely do the mistyping chart with people who love you, where you can actually have follow-up conversations, because it's in the answers after that you really see. And so your follow-up is fantastic there. Ones often desire moral clarity. Eights often desire personal control.
I'd say personal control, because moral clarity, again, is subjective.
Same story, yeah. Ones often suppress their emotions to stay responsible. Eights will often dismiss emotions in order to stay focused.
I would say that despite being a therapist and despite being in tune with my emotions, I am more emotionally repressive in this way. I'm not one to, have large, overt displays of emotion. But I don't think it's because I feel uncomfortable. I just don't feel the need to, express on that magnitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you say that your emotions are something that if you were to express them, they would either do damage or make you look
weak,
flawed?
Weak or flawed in this way?
Weak or flawed actually would be a good distinction if either of those hit you.
What was the first one? So weak or flawed, or what was the first?
If I showed you my emotions, my real emotions, you would think that there was something flawed or wrong with me. Or if I showed you my real emotions, it would make me vulnerable and I would feel weak.
What I would say is this: the feeling I have for others is much different than the lens I view with myself. Mm-hmm. As a therapist, I don't have any problem, and there's no judgment around the expression of that emotion. However, for myself, whether it's maybe because of professional boundaries or whether because I just am not that expressive, I generally don't express my emotions in that same way. Mm-hmm. I'm just a little more tempered, even-keeled. I'll share my emotions with the people who are closest to me, but I really don't get into my emotional stuff with people who aren't.
Mm. Do you feel like you have a very small circle of close people in your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Bang.
Yeah. Jokingly, I refer to it kind of like meet the fuckers and the circle of trust.
Yeah.
On some silly level, it is kind of like that. You
really connect with that kind of.
I do. Well, because trust is the basis for all these kind of emotional securities in this way. Mm-hmm. And the closest folks to me who know the most about me are the people I trust the most, or the people that have been there the longest, or kind of demonstrated that. Mm-hmm. And on some level, it's possible that if you're in the circle of trust and you break that trust, you'll get kicked out and you won't come back in this way. That's happened too,
You have had the experience where somebody has been kicked out and that was fairly decisive. You don't get back in your heart.
The situation warranted it in such a fact that it was a black and white thing for me.
Yeah.
So
you might idealistically think that people can improve, get better. Doesn't matter though in this
one particular instance. Yeah. There are some things. Yeah. I think when it comes to relationships, it can be so complicated because we want to be altruistic. We want to think that there's forgiveness or that there's gray area. But for instance, for many of these listeners might be, if you were in a relationship and someone cheated on you, mm-hmm. you might not be able to forgive.
Yeah.
Right? And that would just oust them. Even if they spent the rest of their life trying to make it up to you, you would have a hard time putting them back in there. And so, I think on some social level, while I think of them as a person being able to change and that they probably will and do better, I'm not willing on going along for the ride in this way while they figure that out. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense.
Okay, I was like,
I'm gonna cry. I'm so happy that, that this conversation went down this path. Do you have a tendency to show concern for everyone or show concern for your people?
My people more. I do have a humanistic side where I care about everyone in this way. And, like if I saw someone who I didn't know being picked on by a bully, there's a good chance I would stand up for that person as opposed to anyone.
Yeah.
But the people I love and care about have a special level of protection with, that I kind of have for them.
Strive to fix what's broken. Strive to protect what matters.
Strive to protect what matters.
Resent ineffectiveness. Resent ineptitude. That's a good distinction. I like this one.
Yeah, I have to chew on this for a second. Only because I need to have, it'll help me. Pick a different word besides ineptitude. Find a word that you would use with that.
Inability to keep up. Dismissing potential. You're stronger than that. Do you ever resent people who just won't stand up when they clearly have the potential?
On some level, as I think about this, I'm trying to figure out which one's more frustrating. Because on some clinical level, these are both real issues and both really frustrating.
Yeah.
I have had people in my past have the best ideas, but are completely ineffective in applying them and thus don't do anything.
Yeah.
I've also had folks that have had terrible ideas, but have gone so hardcore with it that it grows and it works.
Yeah.
And so on some level, I think what would upset me more would be the ineffectiveness.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we all get to decide what's going to be effective for us and what's not. And I can self-sabotage or make something effective based upon what I want. So I think effectiveness would be the thing that I would identify maybe more with. Because ineptitude is judging that person isn't going to be able to do anything with what they are trying to do. And that seems almost counterintuitive to why they would be trying it to begin with. Because they should at least feel that it would help them.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. Sorry. That's complicated.
No, it's again the case that it's trying to make a distinction between the two types, but the answer, you're riffing on the distinction between the two is providing
enough
the insight.
Okay, cool.
that I'm kind of looking for here. Avoid indulgence, avoid dependence.
Which one rings stronger to me?
Yeah.
Avoid dependence.
Yeah. Temper your intensity, utilize your intensity.
Temper my intensity most of the time, utilize my intensity when needed.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, that's very much the case.
Do you understand that you have a gear in which you're very, very strong?
What do you mean?
Is it the case that you understand your power?
Over time, and because I have had really good people in my life, I am gaining this awareness.
Okay. Interesting. See, do you seek excellence or do you seek leverage?
I seek excellence. Excellence within myself. If I have excellence within myself, I'll have the leverage I need.
Do you find that you blame yourself before others, or do you blame others before you blame yourself?
I use the introspective lens before I start to blame others.
Okay.
I don't always blame myself, but I check myself to see before I project my frustration or my anger outward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guard against personal failure first or guard against being betrayed by others first?
Ask me that one more time, please.
Do you have it's almost like, do you have a stronger impulse to ensure that you don't screw things up? Or do you have a stronger impulse to ensure that others don't betray you?
I probably have a stronger impulse for others not betraying me. Yeah.
I think that would, to be honest, I feel like that's where we land. That distinction in the way that you're kind of coming to it, that would push me more towards 8. And I think especially if you came to the material thinking that 8 was really standing out to you, and it clicked with you as you were talking through, here's the distinctions between 5s and 8s, and that was kind of resonating with the dynamic. All that pretends like this is about as good as you can do is, why don't you put these 8 glasses on for a while and see how they fit and if they do any work for you. But because once you type, then you can start making more prescriptive statements about, you have 100,000 8s who all come back and say, here are the things that we needed to work on given our motive, and then it can become real helpful. So, but I think I love your answers. It again strikes me that a lot of times it's hard, dear listener, it's harder to type when you're after the age of 30. But especially given your vocation, and especially because you're informed, especially because you've probably done a lot of self-work so that you can help others. As you were saying, there's California Ben, and then there's adult Ben. And that's, I imagine that when typing, and Enneagram wants to suggest that motive is always there. And that's actually something you said. You said your anger's still there.
I think of it in a couple different ways. Mm-hmm. And there was something I wanted to share real quick. So a question I wanted to ask and something I wanted to share. Mm-hmm. There's this idea by Carl Jung around our shadow or our monster. Mm-hmm. I am a firm believer of this. Mm-hmm. I think that is so insightful and so true that if we don't learn how to work with our monster, then we become weak and scared around that. However, when we find to learn how to manage or how to work and live with our monster, whatever that is, it is a sense of power. Mm-hmm. If we reject that part of ourselves that's a monster, we become fragmented and we lose that part of ourselves which keeps us genuine or keeps us whole. However, when we can find and work with that monster and find ways to cage it, quiet it, change it in this way, then I believe there is power and, in some sense, without getting enlightenment that comes from being able to take something like that and change it and manifest it towards something that you want, something that's healthier, something that's better. And I think that in many ways I've viewed a lot of my bad qualities as monsters in which I have to work to find ways to manage. And so that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know we're running short on time a little bit, is the idea that as I read this, and I know I'm weird, I totally get this, okay? But as I read this, in my efforts to be better, I saw myself having clusters in the body category, clusters in the heart category, clusters in the mind category. And different parts of myself kind of are working on these different parts. And so almost in some weird way, like the emotional side, I could almost identify a number in that.
Sure. Yeah.
My head side, I almost could identify a number in that. And but my overall selves, I could identify a number in that too. But is that weird? Like, is that...
No.
Okay, like...
A big idea, and this it hasn't been really written on, but it's going to be the primary for the third book that we do, ends up being that you don't have a mind, you are your mind. You don't have a body, you are your body. You don't have emotions, you are your emotions. And there's a dance going on within you at all times. You'll be familiar with Inside Out, and one of the characters is more primary, is more of the decision maker, but she ends up being very much one of those centers, that enthusiasm, the joy character. And I think that's how we all kind of come to this. And this is where typing comes in. It's like, where do you kind of feel most at home? And for you and I, we're going to feel most at home in action in our bodies and our intuitions that we take in the world, in that through that center, and it filters so much of who we are in the world and produces that underlying feeling of anger that comes out of, I don't want to be controlled. And if you can, that's a great starting spot. But you still have a relationship with your emotions and will pivot into those spaces, and you still have a relationship with your mind. And so the dance going on within us really matters, especially when it comes to when we get stressed and when we feel secure. The Enneagram symbol ends up kind of picturing that movement of how we move. Lots to say there, though. So, but when you were talking about CBT, I assume though that's a big element of it. Yeah, it's that let's talk about your feelings, let's talk about your thinking, let's talk about your behavior, and they're different. You can make distinctions there, but interconnected, overlapping. It's a dance. That's kind of how I come to it. What do you think there?
Each are necessary for the next one.
Yeah.
In this one. Okay.
Yeah. You can't sever one of them.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I just thought it was really interesting as I was reading and kind of going into it. I was kind of like, you know what? When I'm emotional, or when I'm in my heart, I'm kind of more this way, which is different than what I would say my 8 normal is.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my head, I'm more this way, and it's not like my emotional side; it's my head side, and it's not like my physical side, but I can kind of feel like I can step into these different numbers somewhat easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I were gonna just make a guess, you are working with young people, and I bet you they don't make you feel vulnerable, and I bet you that makes you feel like you're in power and have some security, and that allows you to open up your heart in a very magnanimous, I'm gifting you power kind of way, which is going to be a sweet spot for 8s. And that can be real common with 8s. That a lot of elementary school teachers just can be nurses. It can be 8s. You can see them finding spots where they clearly don't feel vulnerable and can exude power on behalf of others in their vocation. And that can be common for 8s. Yeah. I'm so jazzed about this. You can't tell. I can't tell you how jazzed I am because literally I've done 50 interviews and no 8s have shown up, and I've just needed one, just one. So, Ben, it's been a delight talking to you. And obviously I even feel it as we're kind of talking. It's like, okay, here's the starting line. Now we got all sorts of stuff we could talk about because that's kind of how Enneagram works, at least in my experience. So.
If you want me back, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I would be more than happy to.
Man, I need to figure out what next steps are now that the circle is complete.
Excellent.
All right, well, you're the man.
Thank you, Jeff.